Welcome back to the Better Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Meckling, and thanks for tuning in today. If this is your first time listening in, welcome. Now, I do recommend that you start from the first episode and listen to each one in order because the topic of conversation will flow from episode to episode. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I do want to remind you guys that I do not have any medical education and that everything I discuss is from information I've received from various psychiatrists and psychologists, as well as mental health books I've read and various research from the internet. Now, let's dive right in for today's topic. It's going to be all about derealization and depersonalization. These are two very complex, different words, but what do they mean? What are they exactly? Well, derealization is a type of a disassociation that causes people to perceive the world around them as unreal, distant, or distorted. It can kind of feel like you're living in a dream or a movie, or that you're looking through a glass wall or like a fog-like setting. When I have experienced this, it kind of felt like I was floating in my environment, very unconnected and separated from my surroundings, which was super scary, but it only lasted a few minutes luckily. But it can leave you feeling dazed and uncomfortable and very uneasy for a while afterwards since you're going through such a strong bodily physical response. Whereas depersonalization is a feeling of being disconnected from yourself or your body, or of maybe observing yourself from the outside. It can kind of feel like you're not in control of your thoughts, your feelings, or your actions, or that you're seeing yourself from a distance. People experiencing depersonalization may also feel emotionally or physically numb or describe themselves as an outside observer of their own life. This one really snuck up on me and quite frankly was a bit scary, feeling like you're out of your own skin. But just like with the derealization, it only lasts a few moments, and using the rubber band technique that I mentioned in a previous episode is really helpful for this anxious situation. I remember one day over the summer when I was at an outdoor craft show festival, and it was like all of a sudden I completely detached from my body. I remember reaching over and grabbing my friend's arm who was standing with me just to try and help stabilize myself. It's scary feeling detached from yourself, but luckily it only lasted a few minutes before I began to start feeling back to normal. However, I was still definitely out of sorts for the rest of the afternoon after going through such a strong physical body response. Working with a psychiatrist and psychologist are great for getting through derealization and depersonalization. There is a very real chance of being able to heal from each of them and move on with your life, because you do have to remember that these are symptoms of complex PTSD. They're not like, separate disorders or struggles that you deal with. They're a cause from something bigger. And so as you work through, your trauma and your PTSD, you can overcome your derealization and your depersonalization as well. You just have to be willing to put in the work and find patience within yourself along the way and not give up. Now, to conclude today's episode, I'm going to leave you with the walk and talk technique. When feeling disconnected from yourself, you can go out into nature or hop on the treadmill. Connect with yourself or with a friend or even a neighbor as you walk, and let the conversation flow between you. This can be done in person or over the phone. Walking and talking when done together activates both hemispheres of your brain, which supports the flow of insights and makes it easier to process difficult emotions. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you found it helpful and educational and enjoyed it as much as I did. Don't forget to listen in to next week's episode on Thursday, as well as my music that I have released on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. My music is listed under the name Ash, A-S-H, which is in all capital letters with an exclamation point. Also, feel free to give this podcast a follow on Instagram, X, Facebook, or Threads at Better Yourself Podcast. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See you guys later.